All right. Hi, folks. I want to do a video on, pull up my notes here. Are human alien hybrids in the Bible? There's a lot of different theories on this. This is just my opinion. A lot of people believe a lot of different things. They get into a lot of heated arguments. I think could be avoided if you just say, hey, this is my opinion from a biblical perspective. I'm not forcing it on anybody. If you disagree, that's fine, and I'm not going to argue about it. So, this is just what I believe, okay? I really think the first thing that we all need to remember is before the government admitted that UFOs were a real phenomenon, folks, okay? They publicly humiliated and ruined people's lives who told the truth about the subject, folks. They forced one man, I think it was in Arizona, they provoked him until he killed himself, all this stuff, all this information's out there. They made fools of everyone. I remember, like in 2008 or 9, when Joe Rogan's podcast first started getting popular, there was this Democrat numbskull named Brian Dunning. And literally, one of the things he tried to do and what he posted on Twitter in an article he wrote for this thing called Skeptoid is he tried to use Joe Rogan's belief about the government having UFO technology at Area 51 against him to make him look like a fool. Because he knew the perception is that if you believed that the government was hiding alien tech at Area 51, then you were an absolute conspiracy theorist fool. So Dunning tried to use that to humiliate Joe Rogan and get Joe Rogan to avoid him, but it didn't work. Joe Rogan actually had him on the show and made him look like a fool. Since then, that guy has disappeared into obscurity, and no one even cares who he is. But if you want to actually look that up, you can. The interview's still on YouTube. It's Joe Rogan interviewing a guy named Brian Dunning, okay? I've actually still got the link from Dunning's website. Okay, I've got the link. If you wanna message me, I will send it to you. My email is johnkinney@yahoo.com. I'll send you the link, folks, to where this guy literally, in this link, he mentions Joe Rogan along with other celebrities that believe in pseudoscience and uses this belief, Joe Rogan's belief, that there's alien tech at Area 51 to try to publicly discredit him. So, and that was like 2008, 2009, and I really shouldn't have to remind people of this. But people just forget, dude. Like 3-4 years ago, we were insane to believe that quote-unquote little green men were in these ships flying around in the sky, folks. They made fun of us for it. And now, literally, you got Bret Baier on Fox News a couple years ago, literally saying the government admits to missing pregnancies, okay, in their UFO reports, okay? It's a government report ran by government officials who studied it, and they admit missing pregnancies exist. Okay, use your brain, folks. If you got a missing pregnancy, then you have a human woman that was pregnant, and now the pregnancy is gone, and it's linked to UFO phenomena. I've got that video. Email me, johnkinney@yahoo.com. I'll send you the link to the Bret Baier video. I actually did a video on this a couple years back. You can find it on my page. I played Bret Baier saying this, that it's in the government report. Do the math. If you have a human woman that is experiencing alien phenomenon, little green men, okay, and she's pregnant, and then the pregnancy is gone, what do you think that is, folks? What are they saying without saying? They're telling you that alien human hybrids exist. Why else would a woman who's abducted by aliens get pregnant and then the pregnancy go missing and they can't explain it, okay? That just drives me crazy that it seems like we keep repeating the same things over and over in the truther community, and we're right and the government's wrong, and then when the government finally admits we're right, everybody just forgets and lets it go that the government is a complete bunch of just trash people, folks. They're garbage people that only want you to believe a certain thing, and anyone who tries to tell you the truth, they try to discredit. And you've still got people that believe what they say and wait for the government to come in and confirm whether or not they're allowed to believe what the truthers are saying. Drives me up a wall. Anyways, I don't want to get bogged down in that because literally, as you can tell, it drives me up a wall. All right. So let me just start this video by reminding everybody, folks, okay, what Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9, okay? He says, there is nothing new under the sun. By inspiration of the Holy Spirit, this is the Bible, this is the Word of God, folks. I've got it right here on the screen in front of you. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So, okay, this belief that what we have is new technology, folks, and the aliens are here to help us out, Folks, this is just old hat. This is old technology. We are probably seeing the same technology that the pre-world flood had before God instructed Noah to make the ark, okay, and then destroyed everything on the earth with the flood, okay? A lot of these old unexplained monuments and stuff, folks. You've got the Sphinx, you've got, pyramids all over the place. You've got basically the same design in pyramids and ziggurats that are in like South America. It's all over the world. It's in South America, it's in Egypt, it's everywhere, folks. How did that get here? How did these cultures, they didn't know each other, how did they basically have the same design and the same techniques and very, very similar cultures as how they worshipped and their beliefs pertaining to higher beings, okay, folks, that were in the second heaven? How does that all match? If they were not communicating. And again, I'll go over that in a little bit. I think that is explained in Genesis when God came down, when Nimrod and so on built the Tower of Babel, and God came down and stopped them, because he said if he didn't stop them, they could accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, folks. And it says that he changed all their languages so they couldn't stand each other, or they couldn't understand each other. But he also says that he scattered them, folks, okay? So if you got a bunch of people trying to build a Stargate, and maybe their technology matches, they build pyramids, ziggurats, and all that. If God scatters them, what do they do once they get scattered? They all go back to building the technology and stuff they were accustomed to building. That's why it's ziggurats, pyramids, and stuff like that. And most of it matches, and most of the belief matches, even though the language is different. God confused their language and scattered them. So the same people that were involved in the Tower of Babel were probably scattered to South America, folks. That's why what their beliefs and what we know of their culture, that's why it matches so much. Yeah, it's different. Well, over time it changed. They were separated from each other. But that don't change that most of them have an account of the flood, this, that, and the other. Folks, that's where this came from, and that's why it matches, in my opinion. All right, so keep in mind, Solomon's words in Ecclesiastes, folks. Like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. These alien beings aren't from other planets, folks, okay? I don't believe that for a second. They are not interplanetary beings. They are interdimensional beings. Okay, when you can't see them, where are they? They're just on the other side of the veil, in my opinion. They operate in dimensions that we can't perceive. That's where they're at, okay? And I do believe they have submersible vehicles that are in the ocean, underground, all of that stuff. And that's a very interesting thing to get involved in if you want to study that, folks. But there's reason to believe that. Admiral Byrd's diary, our own government's reports about how these things come up and in and out of the ocean and whatnot, folks. How do they do that? That I think, coupled with the fact that they are extra dimensional beings, which means that they can come in and out of this, out of our 3D perception, right? I think that's a quality that spirit beings have, folks. I mean, in the Bible, that's a quality that angels have. Angels can do that. They're here one minute, they're gone the next, folks. I mean, that's in the Bible, right? But anyways, okay, let's moving on. I want to make this point here because I think this too gets overlooked a lot, okay? Folks, there's a cosmic war going on in the second heaven, okay? Maybe cosmic really isn't the right term to use, but in the second heaven, okay, the first heaven is down here with us in the atmosphere, the air you breathe. That's the first heaven, the earth and the air you breathe, okay? The second heaven is what some people would call outer space, folks. And angelic beings operate in these realms, okay? And we can't perceive that because it's in a spiritual dimension that we can't perceive, folks, but that is the biblical explanation. The second heaven is where the higher beings that rule over mankind, that's where they reside. And the third heaven is where God is and his throne room, right? Okay? When you die, when a Christian dies and he goes to heaven, you go to the third heaven to be with Jesus Christ, folks, okay? That's in the third heaven. And the second heaven are where these angelic beings that are like, and I'll get into this later, that are mentioned in Psalm 2 and we're told they're going to be judged in Isaiah like 21, I think verse 24. I'll get into that stuff, folks. But this kind of like this ruling class of angels, folks, is in the second heaven. And we know in Revelation that Michael makes war with Satan and his angels in the second heaven. They're cast down to the first heaven, which is earth, right? That's in Revelation, and again, I'll go over that in a little bit, but okay. Let's just keep that in mind, though, that there is an angelic war in the second heaven going on, folks. And that is where a lot of this phenomenon happens. It's in the sky, kind of in between the first and the second heaven. If you've seen UFOs, strange lights, on and on and on. All right. Now, there are verses like, let me go to Genesis 3:15 here. Hold on a minute. Okay. All right. This is mention of a seed war here between Jesus Christ and literally the dragon Satan, right? God says, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Okay, folks, that's literally her seed is the Lord Jesus Christ, because everybody knows women don't have a seed, folks. Men provide the seed. Okay, Jesus was born of a virgin, folks, okay? So he was literally put together in her womb, okay? That's why it says her seed. Women don't have a seed, okay? But what's the dragon's seed? Notice thy seed, okay? That's the dragon's offspring, okay? So what does that verse mean? Now, a lot of people that study this phenomenon believe that, basically that is literally why we have Nephilim, folks. That's the biblical account of the Nephilim. Is Satan and his fallen angels started experimenting with mankind to create their own likeness with mankind, folks. Okay? So I want to point that out because I think you'll begin to understand here, and like in Revelation. Let me go here and just explain this too, okay? Now, we're talking about Satan here. Let me go to the top. Okay. Revelation 12:4-9. In the beginning, okay, it says that Satan drew a third part of the stars of heaven. The stars of heaven are angels, folks. That is colorful speech explaining to you that a third of the angels are going to fall with Satan, okay? I believe that's ongoing right now. He's making his witness and his case to him right now, and it's a gradual fall, okay? And this is a prediction of the future, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Okay? And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So there is coming a time, folks, when Michael is going to throw Satan and his angels that operate in the second heaven out of the second heaven onto the earth, folks. And that's in Revelation. If you read Revelation, they go through that, and then Satan gets mad and he goes after the Jewish people because they basically are the ones that Jesus Christ, manifested to us through, right? Okay, he was a Jew, right? That's all in Revelation if you want to cover that. There are so many rabbit holes, folks, that I could get onto to try to explain this stuff. I would be here all day if I tried to touch on it all. So just, we've all got Google. Punch in any questions you got. I'm sure you'll find it. If you got a question, you can't find it, again, you can email me, johnkenny@yahoo.com. I'll send you the Bible verses that I'm referring to if I don't actually show it to you on the screen, okay? So, we've got this seed war going on, right? Okay, and a lot of people believe Genesis 6:4, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, when the Nephilim were on the earth, they were created by fallen beings, okay? These fallen angels took human women and had these Nephilim, folks, okay? Now, that is why I brought up the seed war in Genesis 3:15. Okay, thy seed. I think it's possible, okay? I'm not telling you I know for sure. No one knows for sure. But I think it's possible that the seed talked about here is Satan and his plan to create, their own likeness using mankind, folks. They're experimenting on our DNA, folks, okay? Daniel 2:43, and I'll bring that up again later. In Nebuchadnezzar's vision, the final ruling authority in the world, folks, when you get down to the feet, it says that they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, and Daniel 2:43, folks, okay? That, again, I believe is a reference to, Nephilim beings that these fallen angels are creating. So when someone talks to me about extraterrestrial, okay, folks, immediately in my mind, they are fallen angelic beings, and there's all kinds of different shapes and sizes of them. I'm not the type of person that believes that if you've seen one angel, you've seen them all. I don't believe that for a second. I believe they're all varied. Even in the Bible, they talk about some of the different shapes they have, like some of the cherub have like 4 faces. We know that the angels that appear to men that are the messengers, and are not supposed to, they don't appear like that. They appear as men. Now, if they're changing form, whatever, Who knows? But that's not how they appeared to mankind, folks. And I believe they have different types of abilities, different responsibilities. All right. Now, I want you to notice something here. But someone might ask, okay, well, if God judged the angels that came down and experimented on mankind, and he judged the world with the flood to get rid of all this contaminated DNA, and, he saved Noah and his family, his 3 sons and their wives, okay? And then, then why would God allow a second incursion to happen in which the Nephilim are back? Okay, now let me show you that here in the Bible. Okay. First of all, this is going to be important in a little bit, okay? Genesis 6, 2 through 4. The sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. Okay, we've got sons of God, that's a reference to angelic beings, and daughters of men is a reference to the physical daughters of mankind, folks. And it says they took them wives, all of which they chose. So you keep in mind, because this will happen, this will make more sense later when I bring it up. Okay, these women had no choice. They came down and made themselves known to these women, folks. And if you wanted to be their wife, okay, fine. If you didn't, guess what? They're taking you anyways. They violated their free will. And I'm just going to tell you now, I think that's the difference between the first incursion and the second incursion. The first angels came down and violated mankind's free will when they took these wives, all of which they chose, right? They took them whether you wanted to or not. Well, I think the angels, these fallen angels, have learned their lesson. And the ones that are doing this now are making deals, folks. Google, like the Greta Treaty they say that President Eisenhower was involved in, and just look at the whole work of the lure around these alien type beings making deals with governments, making deals with people, folks, okay? Whether you believe the Greta Treaty and Eisenhower really made a deal with them or not doesn't really matter, because the wealth of knowledge surrounding the alien UFO stuff is that they are deal makers, okay? So these fallen beings came down and were deal makers. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I might as well just show you this right now. I referenced it already. Daniel 2:43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. Again, folks, little background. This is the final kingdom on earth before Jesus returns. This is Nebuchadnezzar's dream that Daniel is interpreting. Okay? And he's talking about the final kingdom on earth before Jesus returns. Remember, He's the rock that smites the statue at his feet, and this is the feet of the statue in the vision. And Daniel is giving Nebuchadnezzar the proper interpretation of this dream, okay? Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, as iron is not mixed with clay. Cleave is a big word, folks. That's derivative of the same word used for marriage in Genesis, folks. So they're telling you they're not cleaving to one another. These angelic beings are not taking wives anymore, but they're mingling with the seed of men. What is basically, from our understanding, the alien hybrid agenda? They're taking our seed, our DNA, and they're experimenting with it. But there are no accounts of modern day aliens coming down like Zeus and taking a wife, folks. I think there's a lot of truth in some of that Greek mythology, folks. I believe a lot of that Greek mythology is based on these angelic beings that came down and took human wives. That is what that's about, and that's why you don't see it, because those beings got locked up, folks. You reference the book of Enoch, and there are references in our Bible, like in Peter and Jude, about these angels that got judged. Okay? Why did these angels get judged and not Satan? My opinion, they were directly involved in taking human wives. They violated mankind's free will. And what do we know about Satan? Satan's a deal maker. He tried to make a deal with Jesus. Okay? Worship me, and I will give you all of these kingdoms, folks. I believe that's in Matthew. He literally made that deal to Jesus. And Jesus did not say it's not yours to give. He just basically rebuked him with the word of God and told him no, he's not going to worship him, right? Okay? He's a deal maker, folks. Think about just worldly theology about Satan. Look at just Satan's reputation in the rock industry, folks. What do you hear? He makes deals with rock stars and celebrities, folks. He is a deal maker, okay? He's not foolish enough to get involved in forcing his will yet, though he will, when the Antichrist, which is basically the son of Satan, the pseudo-Christ, the false Messiah, that man, he's going to get involved with that man, folks, and he's going to try to force his will upon you, but he's sneaky about it. When you take the mark, technically, folks, it's by your own choice. He's just not giving you a very fair choice. You could sit over here and starve to death when the Antichrist is in control, or you can take his mark and buy and sell, and then you can have some food and operate like a normal human being, okay? You know, it's not a fair deal, but it's still a deal. You're still agreeing to take the mark, right? Okay? And again, a thing for another time, folks. If you want to Google Bible, I believe it's in Exodus, about how God said that he will put that he instructed the Israelites to put his mark on their head, on the frontlets of their eyes, Google frontlets of their eyes, and on their right hand, folks. Satan, through the Antichrist, is mimicking God. He's claiming to be God and going right back to what God did in Exodus when he instructed the Israelites to have, you know, that's where that tefillin stuff comes from, those little black boxes that some Jewish sects will put on their head or wrap around their hand, folks. That he's literally mocking God, okay, with that. I don't think enough gets said about that. People tend to ignore that, like they're afraid to talk about it, folks. In my mind, people are going to literally believe that the Antichrist really is Jesus Christ coming again, folks. That's what he's going to say. He's going to say that I am God. What's he do? He goes in the temple and says, I am God, okay? It is going to look so closely to the religions of the world, folks, that people that are not truly saved are going to believe this. It's going to be a delusion so strong that even the elect could be deceived if it were possible, like the Bible says, folks. It is going to look so Judeo-Christian in order that if you don't have the Holy Spirit in you, you're probably going to believe it, right? I mean, that's basically what we're told. It's a whopper, folks, and you talk about signs and wonders. He's going to have power, folks. The Antichrist is going to come down here and perform miracles. What did Jesus do when he was here in his first coming? Perform miracles. People are going to think that it's Jesus Christ, though I'm sure he's going to have a different name, right? You know? I believe there's reference in there. Jesus says another will come in his name, and him you will accept, when he was talking to the Jews. But anyways, folks, I wanted to lay that out there, and I want to start to develop the difference in their method, folks. They came down, they took the wives, and basically in the last kingdom, like in this vision here, they're mingling with the seed of men. But notice Daniel is sure to mention that they don't cleave one to another. So they're not taking wives, they're just mingling with the seed of men, the DNA. Now, you'll notice in some of the new versions, I'm going to point this out too so it don't stump you later, you'll notice Daniel 2:43 in the New International Version sounds like a political issue. And just as you saw iron mixed with baked clay, some people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. Folks, that is such a butchering of that interpretation. That word for seed is zera. It is seed. I'm going to show you that right now. They are butchering that on purpose to confuse you, folks. I want you to understand that. That is why the people that swear by the King James, and why I do too, that is the best version we have in the English translation, folks. That's why you hear those things, because the modern translation, it's a free-for-all, folks. They'll put anything in there. Anything they want to hide from you, they'll take out of there. Just like in Matthew, it's either 17:21, it's Matthew 17:21. They take right out of there that Jesus tells us to pray and fast against demonic entities. Go look it up. If you've got a new Bible, flip to Matthew 17:21. It's not there. They move it to the footnotes. But go to an actual King James version, and it's still there. Jesus says, although this kind only comes out through prayer and fasting, when he's talking about the demonic entity that was in the boy. Go read it. Why do they want to hide that from you, folks? Okay? You need to consider that. But anyways, moving on here, folks. I get so excited about this stuff, I'll run down a rabbit hole for an hour if I'm not careful. Okay. Seed of men. They say, now you heard what I just read, what the NIV says. They try to make it sound like a political issue. Right here it is, seed. Corresponding to H2233, posterity, seed. Okay. They are mingling themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave. Okay. Corresponding to H1692, stick to, cleave. And if I'm not mistaken, folks, that is the same word that's in, or derivative of the word used for marriage in Genesis, okay? But yeah, something interesting. Anyways, let's move on here. All right. Now, here's what I want to get into too. A lot of people believe that Nimrod was literally the first Nephilim after the flood. And why do they believe that? That's a fair question. Okay. Well, let me dig it up here, folks. Give me a second here. Okay. This is why. Genesis 10, 8 through 9. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. That word is Gibborim. Okay. Now, the people that believe, and this is what I believe, folks, but I'm going to tell you right now, it gets a little bit murky because there's so many different views. But I believe if you read and actually look into it, with the supporting beliefs of like the Jewish beliefs around this, that Nimrod was actually a giant, folks. That is why people believe that Nimrod is a representation of Gilgamesh, folks, who was a giant. Okay? This is the same being. A mighty one on the earth. How did he become mighty? Now this is my speculation. I believe Nimrod cut a deal with fallen entities because the angels had a problem. They can't come down there and force their way on mankind anymore, or God will send a flood to kill their offspring and lock them up. So now they got to make a deal. They can't violate mankind's free will. I believe Nimrod was the first one to make a deal with them, and I'll tell you why. Because God had said that Shem would rule, okay? Shem's descendants is going to rule the world, right? Japheth's descendants there's something about how the Hamites, the people who came from the line of Ham, folks, they would be ruled by Shem first, and basically they would live in Japheth's tents, which, if I'm recollecting correctly, when I looked at that, it sounded to me like they wouldn't really own much property, this, that, and the other, and that's basically what's happened. So Nimrod, being a descendant of Ham, right, this would put him in a category to where he's not going to rule. So, in my opinion, the temptation is that Nimrod wants to rule like a Shemite, right? Well, God's not giving him a chance to rule because he's not a Shemite. He's a Hamite, right? So I think that is one thing that Satan could have went to Nimrod. Hey, buddy, come here. We'll change your DNA. We'll make you one of us, and you will rule the world. And what did Nimrod do? He gathered everybody together, folks, and he started to make a stargate, like, the Tower of Babel. A lot of speculation on what that is, but in my opinion, he was literally making a stargate to get into the second heaven, okay? Anyways, he ruled over Babel, folks. So, I mean, in that aspect, I guess if he did make a deal, he did become a king, but it just didn't go how he wanted it to go, right? But, and I want to show you this, why I believe this really quick. That's Genesis 10, 8 through 9. All right. Genesis 10. All right. That word. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. Well, what does mighty one mean? Okay. Gibor. Okay. A lot of people say Gibborim. Basically the same thing. Anything with ayim is plural, 3 or more. Okay. Not 2 or more, because Hebrew has a dual. It's not like English. Okay, in English, it's singular or it's plural, right? Plural is 2 or more. Well, in Hebrew, you have a single, a dual, and a plural. So anytime you see ayim, that's 3 or more, not 2. But I just want to make that distinction so you don't think I'm misunderstanding what I'm telling you. Okay. Gibor, what's that mean? Powerful, by implication, warrior, tyrant, champion, chief, excel, giant. Okay. So the implication of being a Gibborim, at least in some context, maybe not every context, but at least in some context, is a giant. And what do we know from the Bible, okay? Literally, Nephilim is translated as giant in Genesis 6 in the KJV. That was one thing that a giant had. That is one thing that a Nephilim had. Not all of them, but most of them were giants, folks. Some of them allegedly 30 feet tall, okay? So I wanted to show you that, there's grounds to believe what I'm telling you. No matter which side of this debate you fall on, I just want to show you there are grounds to believe the opinion that I'm giving you here. All right. Okay. And like I told you, once again, going back to, I put it in the notes, I'm going to go over it again, okay, just real quickly. The government admitted on Fox News, okay, actually, the government admitted publicly, but the one that sticks out in my mind that's the most popular is Bret Baier's report on Fox News, where he references missing pregnancies, folks, okay? If you're experimenting with mankind, Daniel 2:43, okay, would that not be what you would do? If you're mingling yourself with the seed of men, right? If you're mingling yourself with mankind's DNA, wouldn't you take your DNA, stick it in a human woman, make the mixture, and then go back as early as you can to remove it? And if you could get that pregnancy out of there without anyone knowing, no one knows what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, you can't match it to the Bible and be like, hey, wait a minute, the Bible talked about this stuff. You know what I mean? That's why it's all hidden. People wonder why the government hides this stuff, folks. In my opinion, they know they're communicating with what Christians call demonic beings and fallen angels. They know it. So they're not going to go publicly and tell you that. Number one, they probably don't want you praying against it, because then they won't have their way, right? They surely don't want you to know the truth, so you'll start fighting against it, right? They don't. Why make an enemy they don't currently have? It's easier just to say that it doesn't exist, right? So now, and I want to go back to Nimrod real quick too, because I put this in here. Let's talk about the Stargate he was building. Okay, so someone might ask, why is Nimrod building a Stargate? Okay, if Nimrod was a hybrid being, okay, he's a Nephilim, and he knows that God judged the Nephilim and killed the Nephilim. Some people speculate, and they use old Jewish writings to kind of support it. I haven't looked a whole lot into it, but just so you know, in case you run into it, you know, perk up your ears and pay attention, right? Okay. They believe that it might have been like a preemptive strike into heaven. A lot of people believe that Nimrod thought he was going to overthrow God or the angels in second heaven and be the authority. Some believe that he built the Stargate as an option to get away from the flood. If God sent another flood, he could go through the Stargate and get away. Now, folks, we're talking about a lot of stuff that's kind of crazy. It's hard to believe. It's hard to understand because we don't know that technology. But there was a time, if you tried to explain to somebody that the reason people were getting sick was a microscopic germ they'd never seen before, they would have laughed you out of the tavern or wherever you were at. They'd be like, listen to this guy. This guy thinks we get sick because of things we can't see in the blood, you know, or things we can't see that are on stuff. Folks, you would get, I mean, it's in God's creation, folks. There's a higher level of science that God understands that we don't. You're going to have to humble yourselves a little bit and understand, just because you've never seen this stuff, just because you've never experienced extra dimensionality or been to another dimension, does not mean the stuff doesn't exist. A lot of scientists and mathematicians believe that with mathematics you can prove there are up to 10 or 11 extra dimensions, of which we can only perceive 4. Okay? The 3 spatial dimensions and time and space, you know? So, you know, may sound crazy, but I'm telling you, just pray about it and think on it for a while. This stuff it'll start adding up, I believe, okay? All right, but anyways, moving on. I think I've covered that pretty well, okay? And again, we've got Genesis 11, 1 through 9. This is where I'll show you that God says, this is when Babel, Nimrod is ruling in Babel, okay? And they've come together as one people, and, you know, according to people that study this stuff, they say they're building a Stargate, right? The people is one. We'll start at 6, okay? And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. This is why you see the Tower of Babel and all the UN literature, folks. This is why it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek sign to each other that, hey, even their Christian God admits that if he don't get in the way and lets us go, that if we're not restrained, we can do anything we've imagined to do. That's why they believe they're gods, folks, and they believe your own book, our own book, says they are, okay? That's their interpretation of it. But that's basically, though, if they really want to open up what they believe to you and tell you what they believe, folks, they're going to beat you to death with that verse. Even your God says we can do what we've imagined to do. You see what I'm saying? Okay. And God says, go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, and they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. So God scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth. They went everywhere. This garbage that we've been hearing about them walking over a land bridge, folks, is a joke to me. Now, you can believe whatever you want, and I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence here, but to me, that's nonsense, okay? People got into North America, and they did not walk over a land bridge, folks. God literally scattered them, and I know some people do believe that. I don't believe that at all, okay? Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth, okay? That is, again, like I referenced earlier in the video, that is why the pyramids, the ziggurats, and the technology from, let's say, South America and then all over the rest of the world, that's why the belief system, it all matches up when you look at it. That's why there's serpents everywhere, folks. They worship serpents in South America. They worship serpents over here and all around the globe, folks. This is why, because these people, though their languages were confused, the ones they were scattered with still remembered what they worshipped and tried the same thing again. That was how that they were showed to create a community, folks. They went back to doing what they knew. They still didn't listen to God. They didn't learn their lesson. They went back to doing what they were doing before. That's why these ancient cultures match up when you look at the beliefs, the situations around serpents, the situations with the pyramid and the ziggurats they build. It's, to me, folks, it matches, Like I said, I'm not going to argue it. I understand that there are different beliefs about this. I'm just sharing with you what my belief is. Consider it, come to your own conclusion, okay? All right, now moving on here. Okay, now, a lot of people question, okay, John, where is it in the Bible when God talks about these angelic beings that you talk about that are in the second heaven that are ruling over mankind? Okay, I'm going to show you that right now because a lot of people bring that up, and it's referred to as the divine council. Michael Heiser had a work that got very popular. Okay, I believe he wrote a book about it, and he did sermons on it. A few other things about it. I don't know if you'd call it a sermon, but a seminar about the divine council, about these beings, and what I read of it, and what I listened to what Michael Heiser talked about this stuff. I agree with a lot of stuff Michael Heiser said. He's got a lot of good work on that. Now, there's some other things Michael Heiser believes that I don't necessarily believe. I'll look into a little more, so I'm not saying believe everything he writes, but his stuff on the divine council, I personally agree with. Okay, where's that at? All right, we'll get to Psalm in a minute. Let's start here. Okay, Psalm 82, folks. I'll read this to you real quickly because I think this is the most profound example of this divine council that is ruling in the second heaven, that a third of them are going to go with Satan and get cast down in the book of Revelation in the future, okay? God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. That is God's little g, folks, okay? That is a word used as also, you might as well consider as the same as the sons of God, okay? They are God's little g, though. They are not God supreme. They are not God Almighty Jehovah, folks. These are the angels, the angelic beings, the sons of God that are ruling in the second heaven. Okay? Now, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. Folks, in your mind and in my mind, how I would explain it to you is how my mind works. Remember in Job where Satan comes to the throne room of God, or the meeting place? Maybe it's not the throne room of God, but Satan meets with God and they talk about Job. God mentions Job, and then Satan says, well, you won't let me touch him. You got your hedge of protection around him. And God agrees, okay, I'll bring the hedge of protection down and you can test him, right? Okay? Imagine that when this is being discussed, okay? But here in Psalm 82, God is chastising them for being wicked. Just listen. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Salah. So they're ruling unjustly over mankind, folks. And then God tells them, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Remember I told you, sons of God? Ye are gods, children of the Most High, sons of God. I mean, it's almost synonymous. But you shall die like a man. Okay, if you shall die like men, then you would have to be something other than a man, because that's the punishment you're going to get. Because though you're not a man, you're going to die like one. But ye shall die like a man. It's almost like an insult, folks. And fall like one of the princes. Well, who's the fallen prince, folks? Satan. He's telling them, if you keep going the way you're going, you are going to die like a man. That means get thrown into the lake of fire, okay? And fall like one of the princes. One of the princes, he's talking about Satan, folks. That's Lucifer right there, in my opinion. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all the nations. Okay, and in my mind and my interpretation, I think that I'm beginning to show you folks that this meeting place in the second heaven where these angelic beings are, and where a third is going to side against God, and Michael and God's holy angels are going to throw Satan and a third of these angels down to the earth during the end time. I think that begins to lay the foundation for what I'm explaining to you, okay? We've got Isaiah 24:21 here. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. So the host of the high ones that are on high, folks, I believe it's a reference to the angelic beings and the kings that go along with them, right? And the New International Version interpretation, not that bad from what I remember. And that day the Lord will punish the powers in the heavens above and the kings on the earth below. Okay? I think that, that's obviously a theme here. We got a judgment coming because these high ones, these angelic beings, these sons of God, these God's little g, aren't acting properly, folks. They're going on in sin. They're going the wrong way, and they're going to get judged, right? Okay. So, one more thing here that I want to mention. This video's gone on a lot longer than I actually thought it would. But anyways, okay. In closing, I want to reference one more thing. And you know what? If anybody out here that criticizes me and thinks I've lost my mind about this subject that I'll mention here in a minute, I recommend to you that you just get on YouTube and start listening to the accounts of these supernatural beings that people are seeing, okay? The Facts by HowToHunt.com by Steve Ishdahl, that's a good channel on YouTube. Scott Carpenter's channel on YouTube, who Scott Carpenter recently passed away. I was very sorry to hear that, praying for his family. But his channel is his name, Scott Carpenter. He's got a lot of good work on out there. There's some of the videos he has I don't think is as compelling as other people do, but he does have one video of what looks like a portal opening up in the woods on a dirt trail. Folks, that's pretty interesting, folks. I mean, it looks like there is a portal that is opening and closing, and there is a being, something moving that walks out of that portal. And why anyone would deny that, I have no idea. I mean, it's very, very interesting. You can definitely see that transparent type of like manipulation, like you're looking through, almost like people reference it a lot, like the Predator from the movie Predator, right? Where you've got that translucent being that's distorting the shape of things, but you can see the colors behind it, but the shapes are distorted and you can see it moving. Folks, that's what it looks like. Worth taking a look at. And a lot of David Paulides' work, even though he didn't really come out and really tell people what he thought until lately. I mean, I think that's where we're going, and it's, and I think that all comes into like a DNA experiment, like I mentioned before. I think not only are these demonic beings mingling themselves with the seed of men, they're also mingling mankind with other animals, which is something they did in the flood too, right? Where do you think all those terrible lizards, the word dinosaur, where do you think all those terrible lizards came from, folks? I mean, somebody put them there, folks. I do not believe that was in God's design, man. A T-Rex, we've got the bones, man. They were here. I don't think that was part of God's design, folks. I think that is literally part of the first incursion and all the experiments these fallen entities were doing on mankind and animals, right? It even says that the animals were corrupt in Genesis. I mean, wasn't just mankind they were messing with. So when you got a being like a Sasquatch, a dog man, goat man, I've heard reference to pigmen lately, Folks, when you hear the accounts of people that see these beings, and you can tell that when they're explaining to you this thing, that it literally scared them to death. Their voice cracks. You can feel the terror, like the tension around them. You can feel it, folks. They are telling you the truth, in my opinion. So from there, you've got one question to ask yourself. Okay, did this person see something that's not maybe what they think it was and it scared them? Or did this person literally actually see that? Well, if you think the person seen this thing but just misinterpreted what they were seeing, they didn't really see a Sasquatch, they seen a bear. They didn't really see a skinwalker or a Wendigo, they just seen a messed up looking deer. They didn't see a dog man, they just seen a funky looking wolf. If you believe that, then why are so many people over and over saying the same things? And the consistent detail that they bring up is this thing had red eyes that had its own independent light source that glowed in the dark, right? Okay? And a lot of people dismiss that as science fiction right off the rip. Folks, for all we know, that could be some type of genetic technology that these fallen beings are developing these animal hybrids with that helps them see in the dark. Okay? That could, for people to just instantly close their mouth, I've never seen anything with red eyes, that can't be real, you folks are just crazy. Dude, wake up. There are things in this earth you can't explain. There are things that exist. You can't trust the government. You can't trust NASA. How many times do we have to keep catching the government and these government agencies in lies before you finally understand they will never tell you the truth? That's how they control everything you do and everything you say, because they control the information you operate on and you're letting them do it. You have to stop listening to these people, folks. They're lying to you. They might tell you the truth once in 100 statements. You might get like a half truth, it blows my mind, folks. But I guess the point I'm going to make real quick is I do believe, and this is my opinion, you disagree, fine. Sasquatch, skinwalkers, dogmen, all that stuff I believe is part of a genetic experiment mentioned in Daniel 2:43, folks. I believe the Native American mythology, people would call it mythology, but the Native American beliefs of skinwalkers, this and that, folks, I believe that stuff. I believe at least part of that is true, and it matches a lot of the Greek mythology and everything else from other parts of the world, folks, okay? And I want to talk about something else, okay? Real quick, like especially with skinwalkers. I don't know if I believe this or not, folks, but from what I understand, there are Native American traditions that if you get in touch with one of these higher entities, that you can, once again, like the shamans communicate with them and make deals, right? Well, like, I don't know if most people understand this, but it's my understanding that like a shaman, a powerful shaman, you go to the shaman, hey man, I'm sick, I don't know what's wrong with me. And that shaman, with your permission, goes on your behalf on a spiritual journey, like taking psychedelics or whatnot, and goes to communicate and cuts a deal with these entities on the other side of the veil in the other dimensions for your healing, folks. Okay? And he's making a deal on your behalf, which means you are yoked to that demonic entity, folks. Now, some people say that basis, that communication, that, for instance, a shaman could become a skinwalker or have his DNA altered, much like what I told you earlier about what I believe might have happened with Nimrod. You can cut a deal, and if you will sacrifice a family member, then these entities will turn you into a skinwalker. Now, I know that's a hard one to swallow, folks, but I got news for you. The world is a whole lot stranger than I thought it was just 10 years ago, folks. I mean, there's a lot of strange stuff happening, man. It's possible. In my opinion, it's definitely possible, okay? There's a Christian guy named Bill Schneblin. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the stuff that he says, but I believe he's got a couple books out. He's been on a lot of Christian talk shows, this, that, and the other. Like, I mean, the Christian, like, truth or movement stuff, not like talk shows like Jim Bakker. That's, in my opinion, folks, that ain't worth watching. That's trash. But anyways, Bill Schneblin says that he had an opportunity they offered him to become like a dogman werewolf type thing, or they offered him to become a vampire, and he said the things that they required to become like a dogman were too grotesque for him to get involved in, though I don't believe he ever really said what they said was required of him. But he said that blood drinking was a requirement to become one of these like vampire type beings, and it was a process. And it began with this being that he thought was probably a fallen angel that came to him in a very ominous setting. Either he told this of himself or someone else. And this being came to him in an ominous setting and gave him some blood to drink, in which, in hindsight, this individual was convinced was actually this being's blood. Okay? You've got a lot of references to blood drinking, this, that, and the other. I just thought I'd throw that in there. It's very interesting. So... But anyways, folks, I mean, there's a lot of confusion around a lot of this stuff. I understand that. I hope I didn't confuse you more. Again, if you have any questions about it, I can explain to you my theory for your consideration. Email me, johnkinney@yahoo.com. I'll do my best to reply to you, and I can reference some of the works or maybe some of the biblical passages that I referenced that I maybe didn't read for you here. If you got any questions, let me know, folks. But yeah, I mean, folks, this world's a strange place, and this I believe is just part of it. But I think this is part of the end times deception, folks. And two things: I think that we will get cryptid disclosure before alien disclosure, because I think they go hand in hand. And what I mean by that is, I think the governments of the world may just pop up with a Sasquatch, folks, and be like, "Well, we got someone we want y'all to meet," and roll out here with a Sasquatch or a Dogman, folks, and be like, "See, this is a part of the experimentation. You're nothing special. You're just one part of the experimentation. And our alien space brothers have now come down to bring us into the next thing of evolution. And they've been guiding us all along. And one of the other projects is your earthly brother Sasquatch." Folks, I believe that's coming. I believe that's why they hide the stories about Sasquatch. The government goes out of their way to discredit that. folks, I'm telling you, I believe that day is coming, and I believe that cryptid disclosure like that with Bigfoot and Dogman, Sasquatch, will actually be before or be joined in with an alien disclosure, folks, because you can say a lot, but when you produce a Sasquatch in front of people and you've got a 7 or 8 foot tall being there that can shift itself in and out of our reality and almost go into that translucent state in which you can see through the thing, but it is misshaping and deforming the things behind it to where you know it's there, but it's transparent, and that thing's got red glowing eyes. I mean, it's going to scare you into believing everything they've got to tell you. You know, I really do, because it is such a powerful thing to witness, you know. Again, go back to YouTube and listen to the accounts. But anyways, folks, I've rambled on for too long. I hope this made sense. And until next time, folks, God bless y'all in Jesus' name.